Hello and welcome back to AP Psychology here on Educator.com. We're going to be taking a look now at the cognitive aspect of learning. We've finished classical and operant conditioning. Now we're going to be looking at the cognitive aspect, including social learning theory. So from the AP objectives, we're looking at the essential characteristics of insight learning, latent learning, and social learning. We're going to be looking at learning principles to look at all these various things, including superstitious behavior and learned helplessness. We're going to be looking at how behavior modification, biofeedback, coping strategies, and self-control can be used to address behavioral problems. The coping strategies and behavioral control we'll find in another unit. And then we've already looked at almost every one of these individuals. This particular unit, we're going to be looking at Bandura and Rescorla. Observational learning. When you think observational learning, think Bandura. Observational learning, monkey see, monkey do. Children see, children do. And that's a great little clip. It's a clip out of Australia, and it shows how little children, it's a public service announcement, and it shows how children imitate their parents, including not just inappropriate behaviors like drinking and smoking, but also littering and being inappropriately discriminatory toward people who are not originally from there or who speak a different language. It's really a fascinating video, and I will have it in the links down below. Have you ever watched a child view a television show that had violent characters or aggressive characters and then see that child's behavior change? Well, if you have, then you can join me with this particular list. Once upon a time, I was dating this woman, and we were visiting her family, and she had this nephew who was a big fan of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And that really should be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, I'm sorry I got my N and my M mixed up there, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And what happened was he would watch that show, and he would want to imitate what the turtles were doing, kicking and punching. Well, his parents didn't seem to mind or care, and he was kicking and punching me and kicking and punching my girlfriend, and this was not cool. And so I created a consequence to help him not do that anymore. And I used some insight learning for him. I gave him the insight on if he does this anymore, there will be some problems. But yeah, it was a scary little thing where, again, one of the reasons why I don't ever want to have kids personally, but they imitate. Kids imitate. So they're watching you every minute. You'd think they're not, but they really are. Albert Bandura. He did this thing with the Bobo doll study. And again, I will include some YouTube links. But kids were given, they were watching this video, and there's this Bobo doll. And it's weighted at the bottom, and it's one of those inflatable dolls where you punch it and it rolls over and then it comes back up. Well, what Bandura did was he showed different groups of kids models doing certain things with the Bobo doll. Some were doing nice things, some were doing unpleasant things, hitting with a hammer, pointing a gun at it, yelling at the Bobo doll. And what he discovered, and what he then talked about, was there was this big relationship between a model and an imitation, that simply by observing, by watching, an individual, in this case children, picked up and imitated the behavior of models that they respected and models that were rewarded for their behavior. Can you think of some other people that are, say, out there in the public media who get rewarded for inappropriate behavior? I think I'm about to have a honey boo-boo attack with a desperate housewife of Beverly Hills or New Jersey or wherever. I tell you, there are so many bad behaviors that get recognized and reinforced that other people start doing them. Do you remember Johnny Knoxville and the TV show that he used to have? Then other people started doing that behavior in their own yards and in their own lives. Professional wrestlers now have, they do their thing. They're professionals. They do their thing on TV. There have been kids trying to imitate that and doing flying leaps and all these other sorts of things and hurting themselves and each other in the process. Children see, children do. Children will mimic the role models that they have in their lives. And so that is one of Bandura's big ideas within the learning chapter, is modeling and imitation. So if you have the model, there will be an imitator most likely. In sociology, there's an idea called anticipatory socialization. When you are anticipating, when you are looking forward to becoming a member of a different reference group or taking on a different role in life, you start acting like that group ahead of time. So people who are going to go into college, they may start wearing their college t-shirts even though they're not in college yet. They may start having college parties even though they're not going to college yet. So they're anticipating and trying to practice those behaviors ahead of when they get to that particular circumstance. Also, people who will go into the military. A number of kids I've had who are military bound, they become fascinated by physical fitness and learning about weapons prior to going into the military. Those weren't necessarily a part of their lives prior to making that commitment, but it's one of the anticipatory things, wearing the Army shirts or the Marine shirts or whatever it might happen to be. I had one student, sadly, who was planning on going into the Marines, gave me a couple really cool bumper stickers, and then he had a life event happen to him where he was having to be excluded from the Marines. So he wasn't actually able to go. Tying biology back into this, mirror neurons, those are in the frontal lobe, and they fire when we are performing certain actions or when observing other people doing certain actions. And it's the idea that the brain is mirroring another person's action may enable imitation and empathy. Now, if you've ever watched, whether it's one of those YouTube videos where you've got somebody crashing, or the skateboard videos where you have people who are just getting, they'll be trying to do a ride down a rail and they'll fall and they'll land right in their crotch, and you go, oh, and you have that physical reaction. It's the mirror neurons that help us experience that empathy toward that other person. And this is a relatively new idea, is mirror neurons. So observational learning by Bandura, there is a model that does a behavior, and the imitator will try to do that behavior as well.